A History of Us, Book 2, Chapter 18. Woman, Hold Your Tongue. Anne Hutchinson was another troublemaker. At least, this is what some Puritans thought. Here was a woman with 14 children who was interpreting the Bible. No one objected to that until she began to question some of the minister's beliefs. Soon, she was trying to reach everyone with her ideas about God. Governor Winthrop was outraged. Didn't Mistress Hutchinson have enough to do with all those babies to feed? What was worse, in Winthrop's view, was that people were listening to her. Even men were listening. There was a reason. Anne Hutchinson had a fine mind, and she loved God. Besides, what she was saying made sense. Winthrop admitted that she was, quote, a woman with a ready wit and bold spirit. Before long, Massachusetts was split between people who believed what Anne Hutchinson said and those who believed the ministers. She claimed God was guiding her. The ministers said they were doing God's work on earth. Finally, the Puritans held a trial. You can read the court records for yourself. You may agree that Mrs. Hutchinson was smarter than her accusers, but that didn't help her a bit. She was kicked out of Massachusetts and out of the Puritan church, too. She moved to Rhode Island. Later, Anne Hutchinson moved to New York and was killed by Indians. Governor Winthrop saw it as a judgment from God. In those days, women, like children, were expected to be seen but not heard. They belonged to their husbands. The word for them was chattel. That means, quote, a piece of property. A husband could sell his wife's labor and keep the wages. If she ran again, she was accused of stealing herself and her clothing. Her husband even owned her clothes. Note 1. From me to thee. Puritans and Quakers used the words thou and thee instead of you, and thy and thine instead of your and yours. They are old-fashioned words that people used when talking to a child, a close friend or family member, a servant, or God. What the Puritans were saying with those words was that we are all close. We are all brothers and sisters. Of course, they were referring to the Puritan community. Second note, no more diapers. You might think that Anne Hutchinson had a terrible lot of diapers to change with all those children. But in those days, as soon as a baby could sit up, its tight swaddling bands were taken off. In warm rooms and climates, babies didn't wear anything, though sometimes a mother wrapped a baby clout, which was probably just a piece of linen, around a baby's bottom when it sat on somebody's lap. In colder weather, babies and little kids mostly just wore a shirt with nothing underneath. When the toddlers had to go to the bathroom, their mothers plunked them down outside. Maybe that wasn't very hygienic, but it was simple. Third note, Quaker Catherine. Marbury Scott had enough of life in Massachusetts after the trial and exile of her sister Anne Marbury Hutchinson, so she decided to move with her family to Rhode Island. 20 years later, a grave, sober, ancient woman, she returned to protest when the Puritans punished another Quaker named Christopher Holder by cutting off his ear. The Puritans imprisoned her, had her whipped with a threefold corded knotted whip, and threatened to kill her should she return again. She said, quote, if God calls us, woe be to us if we come not. But he whom we love will make us not to count our lives dear unto ourselves for the sake of his name. Governor John Endicott replied, quote, and we shall be as ready to take away your lives as ye shall be to lay them down. Fourth note, female power in Massachusetts. In 1649 and 1650, 6 petitions, all from Massachusetts women, were submitted to the magistrates on behalf of a midwife named Alice Tilley. Midwives deliver babies. Tilley had been accused and convicted, by the male authorities we should note, of some kind of medical malpractice, although no exact account of what she did survives. 4 of the women's petitions asked that Mistress Tilley be allowed to leave jail to tend her patients. 2 asked that, quote, her innocence may be cleared. According to historian Mary Beth Norton, quote, female Bostonians begged the judges to hear the cries of mothers and of children yet unborn. They wanted Tilly to deliver babies. The astonishing aspect of the petitions, says Norton, was the total number of signatures, which numbered 294. The women won. Alice Tilly was released from prison and presumably went back to work.